All right, can everybody hear me? Let's just see if perfect. Awesome. Sweet. So I just wanted to let everybody know that Camden was supposed to be on at this point. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but he should be coming on very, very soon. Hey, what's going on, Sammy? And this is, as you all know, this is not like him at all. What's going on, everybody? So basically, the idea behind this stream is that also when Camden comes on too, we'll be looking at some stuff on his stream as well, on his screen. And there's just been so much that's gone on in the past week that I thought about it. Okay, we can't cover it in a Kraken episode because it ties into stuff into the main episodes, and then we can't cover it in Let's Get Banned because it ties into members episodes and stuff like that. So I just figured we're literally just going to go in sort of a free flow manner, and you guys in the comments can tell me an article or a story you want me to talk about. It doesn't have to be aliens or alien related, if you will, but I have a whole list that I prepared basically to go through. So essentially, first off, first thing here is that Huawei, the cell phone company, is reportedly hiring Democratic lobbyist Tony Podesta as a consultant to help the Chinese telecom giant warm relations with the Biden administration. So first off, this is interesting. Have you guys seen what's in Tony Podesta's house and things like that? The very creepy things that guy's had, that he's been seen, and obviously his brother is John Podesta. Sorry, Mackenzie, what do you mean? Is it me or does this feel off? Oh, hey, Stephanie. But yeah, anyways, Tony Podesta, let's see here. These guys, they all keep it in the circle. Just like recently that article from The Guardian was talking about how Ken Starr was the lawyer for, again, he was the guy who headed up the allegedly, independent Monica Lewinsky impeachment trial against Clinton. Meanwhile, Ken Starr comes out to cover up, Bill Clinton and Epstein stuff. All these guys are on the same side, in my opinion, and it's coming out more and more, right? There's some really creepy things that Tony Podesta's had in his house and stuff like that. There's certain statues of, I guess you could say some very interesting things at the very least. And it's really, really weird to see, to be honest with you. Let's see here. There was also another thing I wanted to cover quickly. I'm gonna, for those asking about COVID and stuff like that, I'm gonna have to be a little bit careful when it comes to that stuff. But let's see. Alexander asked, "Are you gonna keep this up?" Oh yeah, 100%, for sure. Because there's just so much news to cover, right? So let's see here. Oh, Infinite Blueprint says Podesta has a gold-looking sculpture that mirrors the poses of victims of Jeffrey Dahmer, I think. Yes, exactly. That's one of them. That's one of them as well. Let's see. Lego says, if we post links in the comments, are you able to open them on your side? Unfortunately, not at the moment, but once Camden comes, then we can. Oh, Alex, yeah, no problem, brother. No problem at all. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about too was that it says right over here, this was a few days ago preparing for the weekend. It was talking about how there's over 175 protests against vaccine passports reportedly were planned in France. That's going to be interesting to see too. And again, I think the protest, obviously this was a few days ago, it already happened, but I think that people are going to keep going right now. The idea is that these politicians want to outlast obviously the protesters, but I mean, there comes a point when I don't know what can be done after that, which is why I'm saying I don't encourage violence whatsoever. But just like I say on the Kraken and all that, when people protest peacefully to try to make a point, and they're there for many days or weeks on end, and their elected officials that they voted in still don't listen, there's obviously a very very clear disconnect. So let's see here. Humboldt says, "Hey dude, I found your channel a few weeks ago." Oh, thank you so much, Humboldt. I appreciate it. Cindy, how's it going? Loop says, Luke Ramos says go live with RFG chosen one. Oh, that'd be cool. Yuda says all over Europe. Oh, I guess you're talking about the protests. Yeah. Oh, Mackenzie. Oh, sorry. No worries. No worries. All right. So let's see what else is here. There's so much stuff. I mean, violent protests in Khuzestan, Iran, continue for the 9th day. Regime forces fiercely clash with citizens. Still no water. Internet is down or is hardly accessible. That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm curious because, again, I don't claim to know everything about all this, but I'm curious to see the disconnect between the people of Iran compared to the actual regime itself, right? If there is a disconnect, maybe some people actually do agree with what's going on there. And again, that's why I don't want to say anything as if it's fact, because if I'm not on the ground there personally, I'm not going to, pretend like I know what's really, really happening. Let's see. There's so much here. Let's take a look. Let's see. Sal says it's getting to the point where the frogs in the slowly boiling pot are beginning to see the bubbles. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yuda says, oh, and the flooding watched the water. We could be flooded and wiped out again. Yeah, it's true. People's Currency says Red 2 is code for blackouts. Yeah, I believe that with absolute certainty. What's this thing, by the way, guys? If anyone is familiar with it, this pingdemic in Britain, people are constantly panic buying lately, this pingdemic thing. Let's see, Justin, students, teachers, and staff in Chicago public schools will be required to wear masks indoors, regardless of vaccination status, when they return to classrooms in August. Oh, by the way, there's another thing, too, about how COVID could be allegedly spread via farting. I'm not even kidding. I'll pull up the article. It's kind of funny, actually. And even it's from the Telegraph. So, again, if you want to talk about, mainstream respected website. So we see here, this is according to telegraph.co.uk. COVID could be spread through flatulence, says ministers. Source says officials have read, quote, credible looking stuff, end quote, on theory from other countries, including Australia. My God, credible looking stuff. This is, I don't know how much, like, I don't know. That's insane. Let's see. COVID could be spreading through flatulence. Let's see if I could. I'm not even kidding. Again, when they say credible looking stuff, this is the problem. Like, oh, and then we'll talk about Joe Biden's town hall in a little bit. But when Joe Biden said at his town hall the other day, I was checking out some of the highlights when he goes, I don't understand why there's so much distrust in the government. Pardon my English, guys, but what the fuck are you talking about? Why you don't understand why there's so much distrust? We have to constantly speculate because the government is lying. And when you say, okay, the government's lying, what area, what niche of the government, because the government's made up of so many different, bodies of institutions and agencies and things like that. Most of them, the FBI, the CIA, the Pentagon. I mean, let's see here. Let's read some comments. Let's take a look. Humboldt says, I heard yesterday they're trying to get the FDA clearance on the vax, then they can legally force us to get it. It's going to get crazy soon, folks. Buckle up. Well, I could tell you this, Humboldt. I live in Canada, and in Canada, the Constitution is not nearly as strong as it is in the U.S., as I've said many times before. And they're basically, the laws that are being put in here, one could argue, are violating the Constitution, and the argument is, well, okay, it's a pandemic. This has never happened before. But again, in pure legal theory, from my understanding, as is being ruled amongst most federal cases in the U.S. by federal judges on the Supreme Court and other, Ninth Circuit courts and much lower courts as well, what we're seeing is that the judges are basically saying, look, there could be a World War Z or I Am Legend type zombie apocalypse, and you still technically have your rights. So again, it comes down to the debate of that, right? Which is why I understand why people are moving countries, people are moving states. It's no secret amongst myself that I'm strongly considering moving to the South, right? Let's see here. Antonio says, hi, Dave, I'm in the UK. Yes, stores are running out of certain things, lots of empty shelves. What BS? But I've seen it. It's true. Okay. Thank you, Antonio, for the confirmation. Infinite Blueprint says, I work for Lidl. Or LIDL, have been off work for the last few weeks. I'm interested to see the buying patterns when I get back on the 5th. Interesting. Jinx Jackson says, what a cool thing to wake up and find. Cool. People's Currency says, my body, my choice. Well, again, this is the idea. Let's see. Drew Phillip asks, Zed, what's your grand plan for the future? Trying to get land, get like-minded communities together, or is it day by day? How many people even have a month's worth of food? Well, I'll be honest with you, Drew. Okay, so actually, that's a pretty good segue into this, and then I'll get to the rest of your guys' comments here. So, I'm in a position to know that there's surveillance going on. Nothing heavy whatsoever. I'm nobody special, but there's surveillance going on. Like, I do know my phone is tapped for a fact. I have been told that by the feds, not because they're targeting me, but because they're some of the people I'm trying to reach out to for the show. They said I may be, I guess you could say, intervening with some of the, like, get caught in the middle of a wiretap or something, right? And look, I don't care. I got nothing to hide, right? But the reason why I bring this up, Drew, to answer your question, is the grand plan is, I'll be honest with you. Even if you asked me 3-4 months ago about, getting things like storable foods and stuff like that, I would have said, you know what, let's just take our time and see where this kind of stuff goes. But folks, I got to be honest with you. I'm of the mindset right now that I would get storable foods this week. Obviously, more open land, the better. But again, it depends on what's coming and how it's going to be, how it's coming and things like that too, right? So, and that's a good point, Drew, when you said how many people even have a month's worth of food, right? Like, again, there's always this big thing too, from my understanding, and some of you that are older than myself may know this, that there's always been a bit of a back and forth type of bullying scenario between, the preppers, if you want to call it, the people that are, always preparing for something to come in terms of, storable food, buying, a small a patch of land very far up north somewhere, something like that. And then there's always the people that's, that live in the city and things like that. And, totally cool that say, oh, come on, you think the world's going to end, this and that. But in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with preparing a little bit, right? So let's see. Let's take a look here. Yeah, everyone's saying prepare for food. Yeah. Jennifer Roberts True Divine says pandemic causing lots of people to have to stay off work due to their phones saying they have been in the vicinity of an infected person. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Let's see. Anna, says they've thrown the U.S. Constitution out the window. Well, Anna, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If you think that's bad, you should see what the little moves they're making in Canada here. It's not making the news, but it's, these little moves and things like that, right? Let's honestly, like Yuda just said right now, we have no real rights here anymore. We live in a projection of the truth. It's just not physical. I agree entirely, and to a T. I mean, just take a look at all the little loopholes. We have been given a chance, in my opinion, amongst the masses to sort of call out a certain handful of the elites. And what do I mean by that? Well, the people say, and I'll be honest with you folks, I have a family member that we always debate. I like debating with him because he's an uncle of mine. And in my opinion, he tends to believe in the system. He has more faith in the system than most, in my opinion, right? And the reason why I say that is because when we take a look at the way that the system is operating overall, in terms of, the masses trying to actually have some type of progress delivered for the elites or the politicians, whatever you want to call it, and the politicians use excuses to not do it, that's how we're living in a what's the term, like a fake cushy democracy, if you want to call it. And the reason I say that is because, again, not just the United States, but let's just take a look at the US very quickly, right? Look at the $15 minimum wage, and Joe Biden could have done it through executive order, and he could still do it, or he could have done it through the what was it, in Congress via the parliamentarian. But the parliamentarian said, oh no. And they said, we have to respect the rules of the parliamentarian. As I've said a bunch of times before, do you guys know what George Bush and Dick Cheney did? I don't know if Mike Pence did it, but I know that Cheney did it. When the parliamentarian, which is a symbolic role, by the way, disagreed with any of the pieces of legislation they wanted to pass, you know what they did? They just got a new one. You know what I mean? So again, to say, for my thing is this, I'm not trying to criticize just the Democrats, but for Joe Biden to say things like, for example, I want to take the time to work together. No, it's not going to happen, because unless you get the real big money out of it, I mean, and did you guys know, by the way, that Obama's initial administration, his whole team came from an email from Citibank? I'm not joking. His entire, like, he was going to staff his administration with came from Citibank. Let's take a look here. Jennifer says, there seems to be a lot of groups over here which seem progressive for the people and going against the government, yet they are sort of holding people back. Yes, exactly. And the reason why I say that is I like what you said there, Jennifer, is because it seems like there is a sort of a movement amongst, and I want to be careful when I say this word, because the mainstream media is trying to propagandize this word as dangerous, but populism, right? When you have the populist left and the populist right coming together, it seems like at the moment there is some form of transcendence of economic goals. And what I mean by that is this: there are people that are now saying anymore, hey, I don't care if, you know, you're African American, if you're Latino, if you're white, you name it, right? We have a common issue. And what is that common issue? We're being pressed down, we're being suppressed by the elites. I mean, folks, if I told you folks some of the things that have happened to me just in the last few weeks alone, it's a perfect example. It's nothing too crazy, don't get me wrong, but it's a perfect example of how the system, if they really wanted to, whether it's a real person or an algorithm, how a system can really come in and close in on you and really limit you in so many different ways. So to say that we live in a fully free functioning democracy, no chance at all. Now, to be fair, we have it better than a lot of other countries, yes, but at the same time, that's not an excuse for us to become complacent, in my opinion, right? So, and that's another thing too. We see, for example, outside of the BBC, hundreds of thousands for weeks have been protesting outside the BBC, and they won't report on it whatsoever. I'm not even kidding. They won't report on it at all. So, let's take a look here. There's some more stories I wanted to cover. There's so much, guys. I mean, now some people have actually been asking me, Dave, why don't you cover what's going on at the border? Because now there's more footage at the U.S.-Mexico border of, you know, more migrants coming through. And I'll be honest with you, folks, the reason is because, in my humble opinion, footage can be manipulated in so many different ways, especially at the border, right? Things taken out of context, you name it. So unless I'm there myself, I don't really want to, you know, deliver to the audience something that sounds so concrete when it really isn't. Didn't those dams in China flood as well? Let's take a look here. Do says, Dave, just curious to know your opinion about the conclusions of humanity. Will the elites be exposed and reality of everything will be disclosed, or it will be just continue as it is now? Dues, I'm debating that myself, brother. And the reason why I say that is because the more research I do for the upcoming episodes that will be coming out this week, the more that I say to myself, like, okay, hold on a second. When I take a step back, the one thing I notice is this: are the elites being exposed? Yes, but I'm not trying to sound like, you know, a tinfoil hat guy here, but how much of this is curated, right? Because again, remember the concept: when you bring yourself down before anybody else does, you control the way that it happens, right? And so again, I'm not saying that these elites are planning every single story in the paper that, you know, makes some of them look bad. But again, if we assume that there are different factions of them, if you want to call it, what we then would see is a possibility of these elites falling. But the question is this: if the elites fall, does that mean the structure falls, right? And that's where my mind is leading to right now. Because if the elites fall, the structure could still be in place. Because unfortunately, when you put in a structure that has an ideological mindset that is not aligned with any type of, you know, documentation or piece of paper, it's basically a shadow government. It's a group of people, men or women or both, that are basically allied and aligned just to one another. So whatever agency they're part of, whether it's, you know, MI6, CIA, whatever you want to call it, the alignment of the overarching goal will always be to each other, and the loyalty will be to one another. Arguably, that's a shadow government, could we not say, right? And maybe there are different cells or factions of this type of shadow operation. And this is the unfortunate thing, right? And so when we take a look at that and we say, okay, well, we got rid of this CIA director, he was no good, we got a new one in there. Yes, we got a fresh face, but has the core concept of what is driving this agency and institution, has that changed? That's what it comes down to. And I say this because, again, some of you may not like me for quoting this, but I think he did a good job at explaining it. In the recent documentary Cosmic Hoax, I like the line that Stephen Greer used, which was, you know, we won the battle of World War II, but did we really win the war? Meaning the ideology of, that type of fascist mentality, and we could argue via Operation Paperclip, was then transferred into America, obviously, right? And so again, the very advanced and successful abilities of German infrastructure, engineering, you name it, was brought into the U.S. and partly into Russia as well, right? So again, the question is, if there were certain Nazis put in charge of rocketry at NASA, finance, Federal Reserve, things like that, if they name their successors, and then they name their successors, which would probably be this generation that we're in right now, or this current modern time, I mean, it's a very valid debate, right? And this goes back to what I was saying about, I have this debate with my one of my relatives. My relative would argue, well, Dave, it's not like that anymore, simply not like that. But again, folks, they've been lying to us so much, we got to speculate. There was a recent article in the CIA, a recent article that, according to a CIA source, Paul Manafort met with WikiLeaks' Julian Assange. There's no evidence of that. The only evidence is the CIA sources. Now, again, the whole thing is, it comes down to the faith and belief in the system. Do you trust their sources, right? So it's hard to say. And I'm not saying it's always like it was back then. But, one more quick example was, for those that are members on Patreon, if you see, we analyzed the video a couple months ago of of John Stockwell, former CIA agent, talking about how they had, and this is back in the late 70s, over 400 journalists on the CIA's payroll from all around the world, some of the biggest names in the business domestically in America and globally. So the question becomes this: do you think that that's gotten worse in terms of that dissemination of propaganda, or do you think it's gotten better in the sense that the CIA can't influence these outlets as much anymore because it's harder, because there's so many outlets? It's an honest question. I'm not saying I have the answer, guys. I'll be totally honest with you, right? So again, it's some people may have faith in the system more than others and say, look, I'd like to believe that at this point there's better people in the government, but this is what it comes down to. I'd like to believe, right? That's the unfortunate thing when it comes down to facts suiting theories, right? Or theories to suit facts. That's the big thing that a lot of people tend to conflate. The next thing I wanted to cover is, let's see here. So Dr. Fauci said, and I quote, "People are sort of raising their eyebrows a little bit," end quote, "because of the apparent steep fall off in the Pfizer vaccine's effectiveness that the Israeli data seems to suggest, according to the New York Times. So a recent Israeli study showed that I think the Pfizer vaccine is like 39% effective against the Delta variant. I got to be very careful because we're on a YouTube live stream here, but I do want to say that, look, we'll see what happens, in the sense that if this data is conflicting, I'm curious to see how quickly this gets buried under the rug, or if this actually poses a legitimate, issue, if you want to call it, right? So, but again, this whole thing with the flatulence, incredible looking stuff, my gosh. The next thing is that the U.S. Department of Justice dropped investigations of all Democratic governors whose actions resulted in tens of thousands of deaths in nursing homes last year. I believe those states were Pennsylvania, I think Michigan, and definitely New York. Obviously New York, because the whole thing with Cuomo there. Again, could we call that corruption? It's up for debate. Could we call that corruption? It's hard to say, right? And I mean, look, I'll be honest with you. I say it's hard to say because I want to sound, as unbiased as possible. I don't want to influence your guys's, opinions and perspectives, right? But ultimately, if you want my personal opinion, of course, it's pretty obvious, right? We can go by the proposal of, there's no such thing as conspiracies, but there's also no such thing as coincidences either, right? So let's read some comments here, by the way. Let's take a look. People's Currency says Dr. Fauci is guilty of gain of function with the virus funded by him and Obama. Actually, People's Currency, that's a great point. Because, look, I don't agree with everything Rand Paul was saying to Fauci in every congressional hearing. However, this past hearing, I don't think Rand Paul did anything out of bad faith, in my opinion. I mean, look, Rand Paul is not perfect either. Don't get me wrong. But I think he asked pretty suitable questions. And again, this comes down to the thing I was just talking about, which is when you try to get someone on their words and they have nothing to back up on, it's just deny, 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 or, claim that you have more faith in the system than someone else. Therefore, your belief at the overall conclusion of what you're discussing is going to be different no matter what, because the goal is to be different, right? So let's take a look here. Let's see. Majority, let me see here. This is okay. So this is interesting. Hey, what's going on, Steve? Let's see. Anna says we were pulling together conservatives in the community, and they couldn't have that. Yeah, no, I see exactly what you're saying. It says, let's take a look here. Ex-White House physician Ronnie Jackson says something seriously wrong with Joe. Believes Biden will be forced to resign or will face the 25th Amendment, according to the Daily Mail. Look, one of the reasons why when people say to me, Dave, how come, you're not as concerned as other people about, Fauci's mental stability, Biden's mental stability and things like that. It's because in terms of keeping like North America safe and things like that, I don't think from a militaristic standpoint anyone's going to try anything in terms of enemies or overseas countries or anything like that. But with that being said, though, I'm very concerned about what's going to happen here. And like, let's take a look, for example, at the town hall. Okay, let's take a look at the town hall with Don Lemon. First off, I'm not the kind of guy that looks at ratings to compare stuff like that. But I mean, have you guys seen when Jen Psaki does press conferences and stuff like that, when the White House does a YouTube live stream, YouTube takes away the dislikes. And even then they have trouble doing it because the dislikes still outdo the likes. And the views are like, I think 1,500 views. You got like 2,000 people watching. But anyways, meanwhile, for Trump, you'd have like 100,000 people, just on YouTube watching, which is huge, right? So anyways, Don Lemon, there's a few things. He mentioned aliens too, Joe Biden, but Don Lemon was trying to correct Biden for those that didn't see it. And every time Biden messed up. But what was even more embarrassing was that Biden would then correct or attempt to correct Don Lemon back. So Biden would say something, like the vast majority of cases are coming from, 4 or 5 states in the South, which I don't believe is accurate whatsoever. If I'm not mistaken. Don Lemon says, well, sir, that's not entirely true. And then he interrupted Don Lemon and was like, no, Don, no, it is. Trust me, I know. And then Don Lemon's like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like shit. So you can't really cover for your guy when your guy is thinks he's doing the right thing, right? So again, there's that. There's a lot of things he said that, he was stumbling and muttering. Do I think, now I'll be honest, after watching this town hall, getting another look at Biden, not his presentation, but just as a person trying to read his character and things like that, do I think he's been briefed on aliens? I'll be honest with you folks, I think a lot more politicians around the world have been briefed on aliens than we think. And the reason why I say that is you'll see this coming week based on the episodes coming out and stuff, but some of the documents I'm looking at that I'll be showing publicly and mostly on Patreon will suggest that, again, a lot of high-level politicians know. They don't know about the alien projects, but they know that there are aliens. Let me make that very clear. Now, when Biden said at the town hall, for example, when he was there and he goes, when you're at the baseball field and, with your kids and they're playing baseball and, they're asking one another, did you get the shot yet? Did you get the vaccine yet? Or whatever. And then the next thing he said was, when they ask each other, what are those aliens doing up on the moon there? I'll be honest with you, folks. There's a part of me that says, obviously he's just mumbling and bumbling, but there's another part of me that says he's been briefed to the slightest extent, to the most minimal extent. And the reason why he'd be briefed is because he goes along with what the establishment does and doesn't put up a fight. So they would let him in on the basic stuff, right? I'm pretty sure Biden was briefed on UFOs when he was vice president with Obama, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, could he have let that slip? Could that have just been a mental bumble of sorts? It's hard to say. But also a quick little thing: Nancy Pelosi went on George Stephanopoulos again, and she looked quite robotic. She didn't screw up like last time, but let's see. Oh, Reese, hey, how's it going? Sorry, guys, I haven't been reading the comments, guys. It's kind of it's a little bit difficult just to go through the stories and comment on them, but it's fun. I really enjoyed it, and I thank all of you for watching. Let's take a look here. Let's scroll through some more news articles. Okay, let's take a look. You guys, by the way, in the comments, actually, you guys tell me what you guys want to discuss. If there's anything you guys want to hear my opinions on. Again, it could be news, it doesn't have to be alien related. Let's see. U.S. Justice Department has dropped cases against 5 visiting researchers accused of hiding their affiliations with China's military, as some FBI analysts cast doubt on the value of the cases. Okay, interesting. Let me see. Maddox asks, Dave, have you heard of Randall Carlson? Absolutely. Absolutely. I really, that guy is very interesting. Love his work, in my opinion. There's been a lot of earthquakes, by the way, too, lately. Magnitude 6.8 earthquake south of Manila. There's been a lot of stuff. Jen Psaki is refusing to say how many breakthrough cases of COVID there are at the White House for vaccinated staffers. Germany to set up a nationwide cell phone emergency system to broadcast alerts following the recent flood disaster, the Interior Ministry confirmed Friday. Okay, so hold on. Let's go through some of the comments here. Earthquake, let's see. Quat DSNY, sorry if I mispronounced your name there, says earthquake coincided with solar activity. Very possible, yeah, absolutely. And also, I think too, again, we take a look at some of these earthquakes, happening off of the coast of Florida and things like that, and military training exercises off the coast of Florida. It's no coincidence that it's been speculated and observed, and in some cases documented for years, that the Solar Warden main base, or their main hub of operations, is underwater off of the coast of Florida, right? So let's see here. Adesh Jalota says, Michael Salas said that there are meetings happening near Jupiter who are deciding the future of Earth and what is Galactic Federation. So Galactic Federation is basically, Adesh, the short version is, think of Star Trek. Basically a bunch of different alien races coming together to form a sort of a United Nations, but the idea would be far less corrupt and things like that. Now, former generals and retired military colonels have said that they know for a fact that we are far too infantile of a species to join this federation. That's why even the aliens that don't like us kind of watch over us, because we do so much damage to ourselves that we don't even realize it affects other things in other dimensions and aspects of the cosmos, right? In terms of these meetings near Jupiter and stuff like that, and Saturn's rings and what have you, 1,000,000% without a shadow of a doubt, I believe that there are meetings being held there. Let's take a look here. MG says, I rewatched your episode on Abigail. This is still going on, yes? Besides being heart and gut-wrenching, seriously disturbing. Yeah, I mean, again, these experiments, by the way, MG, they don't really end, right? So again, to say that, it ended there with that project, again, maybe it could be more contained, but let's see. Lewis says, did you hear about Lil Uzi buying a planet? Yeah, I did. I think Grimes is the one, Elon Musk's girlfriend or wife or fiance is setting that up there. Let's see. R. Rose says, MW is clearly identifying Swift Air bringing illegals directly into the country, Army-aged males. Interesting. Let's see. I love Michael Sala, yeah. Sorry, guys, the chat jumped a little bit. I just want to read some of your comments. Kois Ronan says, what are your thoughts on celebrities that alike? I guess you mean look alike. Do you think there is some from internal gene sharing that's going on? Or some form of internal gene sharing? Saw a recent post on this, thought it was pretty funny. Honestly, I think there's some very interesting things going on in the sense that I think that like the sex cults and stuff they happen. I do believe there are different levels of the hierarchy, if you want to call it, of what people in Hollywood are let in on what things and all that. But I think that I think there's a handful of them that are reptilian, and I also think there's a handful of them that don't know what's going on whatsoever, to tell you the truth. And then there's a handful, which I think fall in the majority of the category, where they see what's going on, but they just choose to ignore, pretend like they don't see it, right? Case in point, Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, right? So let's take a look. Jinx Jackson asks, what is Lil Uzi? Lil Uzi is, I believe, a rapper, if I'm not mistaken. Infinite Blueprint says, my mate reckons Jen Psaki is what would Mark Zuckerberg look like in Oh, I see. Yeah, people have said that Jen Psaki is the female version of Mark Zuckerberg. Oh, thank you so much. Let's see here. Hold on. Sorry if I'm skipping some of the chats, guys. Mackenzie says, do you believe Donald Trump is a time traveler? No. In my opinion, as of now, no. Lupe Ramos, have you heard the Space Program 20 and back? Lupe, hopefully I'm saying your name correctly, my friend. Yes, I talk about that quite a lot publicly, but even more so on Patreon, just because there's so many things that fall into that category that I can't really, I guess you could say, cover publicly without risking a community strike or guideline or whatever from YouTube. They're important. All right, so let's move on a little bit. Let's see what else is happening here, if there's anything new. There's so much. I mean, there's stuff this week that I'll be talking to you guys about having to do with Iran-Contra, Epstein being heavily involved with that, and that tying in with extraterrestrials to fund the black budget secret space program. Let's see. Hold on. Mackenzie, Barron Trump, and Marvinless Underground Adventure. Oh, okay. Right. NM says, do you have any thoughts on Cyrus Parsa? Hold on. Let me look that up really quickly. Cyrus Parsa. Oh, yes. Okay. I do. Yeah. So Cyrus Parsa, I think there's an element of what Cyrus Parsa, I guess you could say, believes in or works on that I really subscribe to. I think that he's covering a very good angle of things. Now, again, how that could be used is very hard to say, but let's see. Patricia says, what happened with the church burnings? That's right. Yes, there were a bunch of churches that burned down as well, too. I believe, again, I'm not sure, Patricia, if you're referring to Canada, but let's see. Yuda says, I think Trump is mega important, but he has such a big role to play. He may even have to play the bad guys. Well, again, just because I don't think Trump is a time traveler doesn't mean that I don't think he doesn't have an important role to play, right? Again, whether he himself even knows that he has to, there might be a role to play or not, right? Let's take a look here. Patricia says, yes, the Canadian ones, there are an insane amount of them. But yes, yeah, the church is being burned down. Yep, definitely. And look, I'll be honest, Patricia, I'm not for violence, but I mean, if, assuming that we know who's doing this, who's responsible for this, I can understand the frustration. I'm not saying I'm for the violence, obviously, but let's see. Cozy Got Soul says, do you think Loki is involved in the new narrative the CIA is trying to push when they try to pull the Project Bluebeam? Can I be honest with you guys? I get a weird feeling when I look at Loki, the show, and a handful of other shows. I have nothing to prove this, but the feeling I get is like something is telling me that this was not, I guess you could say, ordered by humans to disseminate, meaning that this was not a fully controlled decision by humans at the highest level to push out things like Loki, to push out things like Godzilla versus King Kong. Not the shows themselves, but the actual content of the shows is what I'm referring to more specifically. Because of course they, regardless of which direction of influence, there always would have been a Godzilla versus King Kong, right? I'm not trying to say that aliens made that happen. I'm saying they made certain, in my opinion, they made certain scenes occur. Like if you check, the opening credits of Godzilla versus King Kong, you got Operation High Jump with Admiral Byrd, right? The footage, the official footage there. Let's see. Oh, MK says, haven't watched you live, but I never miss a show. Oh, MK, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Um, let's take a look here. Let's see very quickly. All right, Twitter has temporarily suspended #VoterGA, the organization that reportedly exposed thousands of fraudulent Biden votes in the Georgia 2020 elections. Did, did they really? That's why they would do that. Again, if there's legitimate concerns, it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't matter how dangerous a theory is. I mean, look, folks, I still stand by the opinion that ultimately what would happen is that you drive people into more and more corners of the dark corners of the internet, and you fester the anger and emotions more by banning them. Right now, again, the opposite end of the argument is, okay, so Dave, should we just let them roam freely? I'll be honest with you, folks. I'm of the opinion right now that unless you are targeted in a violent sense, if you're then you should be removed. Like if you're targeted in a violent sense, or someone actually says, a legitimate threat on Twitter, Facebook, what have you, you should be removed. That's obviously that's a direct threat to your safety. But if someone is, starting a #VoterGA because they want to look into the legitimacy of the authenticity of votes or what have you, again, Twitter suppressing that is only going to drive people to other sites and things like that, right? Forget the business side of it. Just, let's see here. Lewis says, what's the situation with Randy Kramer? Do you believe anything that comes out of his mouth? I don't believe, but I also don't disbelieve when I take a look at people like Randy Kramer and things, because again, it's so, I guess you could say, overwhelming. The things that were considered to be total, the thing of children's stories even 3 years ago, right? So let's see. Thomas Anderson says, Jesus Christ, people, do some real research. We're trying, Thomas. We're trying, brother. Cozy says, do you believe that there's different varieties of ourselves, and could we have gotten connected with them? I think in terms of different varieties of ourselves, I think so. But again, that's more of the perception of, multiple people, multiple spiritual beings and things like that, having to do with connecting to time and space, about how that's viewed in the same way that everything is one and the same, but the different parts of us or time make up the collective. Like it's, so let's take a look here. Let's see. Dew says, what are your thoughts on CERN? It's said that CERN has the ability for time dilation. Does it really control future events by rolling down the present or any other mechanism? Oh, I think it could if they wanted to. I think obviously they'll never admit it, but I think absolutely. Oh, hold on. Okay, 20. Okay. 20 with Corin says, Dave, how long do you think it will be before we are forced to use these vaccination passports? We are moving to Florida from New York next year. Hope we have time to sell our house here, etc., without penalties. Well, 20 with Corin, I appreciate the question. So first off, here's the thing with the vaccine passports. You see, this is another point that we can make too. The fact that I couldn't mention vaccine passports on a live stream even a month ago, 5 weeks ago, and the fact that I can say it now much more comfortably just goes to show you the censorship in and of itself. Now, again, we won't be able to prove that per se, right? Because if I mentioned this 5-6 weeks ago, the stream would have just shut down and nobody would have heard nothing. YouTube wouldn't have sent me any things of the sort, right? They probably wouldn't have, at least. And so it just goes to show you that the corporate media is kind of putting a middle finger to the people, to the everyday people, saying, listen, we may not have the ratings anymore, but you're still going to go in the direction we want you. It's kind of like it's flexing its muscles, so to speak. And of course, the corporate media's muscles are being flexed by, the elites that are pulling the strings there. So let's take a look here. Hold on. Yuda says, aliens have been here for thousands of years. The only reason they tell you, oh, look, a UFO on mainstream is simply to ready your mind for the invasion. Of course. I mean, there's obviously direct predictive programming and things like that, right? To say that, MK Ultra, people say we got to find the new files on MK Ultra. What files, guys? It's not a project anymore. It's become so normalized. It's everywhere now. Like MK Ultra, Project Bluebeam, we don't need to look for files or papers anymore. It's all around us. Now you say, okay, what do you mean by, when you say Project Bluebeam is all around us, folks? I got to tell you, I mean, the me of 6 months ago would have never thought I would even end up saying this, but there's so many things in plain sight that seem to be extremely advanced, holograms and things like that. Now, look, you can call me crazy. I'm not, but again, you'll see over this coming week why I say that, and you'll see why I bring that up. Let's take a look here. 20 with Corin, no problem. Terry Davis Williams, oh, thank you. Rory Viner says, why was the recent public government UFO report such a disappointment? Rory, in my opinion, that's basically what happens when politicians or Congress reaches out to the intelligence community, and the intelligence community doesn't want to, pardon my English, doesn't want to give jack all to, doesn't want to give anything to Congress because of how leak prone they are and things like that. So basically, if you took millions of dollars, flushed it down the toilet, and then wrote on a piece of paper with a pen or a pencil, sorry, come back to us next time when we want to give you something, that's basically what the report was, in my humble opinion. Let's see. Cozy Got Soul asks, do you personally feel that the world is going to end anytime soon? End, no, but in terms of massive hierarchical power structures, yeah. And it's not because I hope so. I'll be honest with you. I'm actually kind of internally, I'm afraid of it, but we have to embrace it because if not, we'll be stuck in this system now. Which is another thing I wanted to mention too. I was just the last couple of days, as I've been doing research for this coming week and things like that, I've just been thinking, my God, I mean, the amount that we've been suppressed. To think we live in a democracy is not even true. But what I mean is that we could literally be on an anti-gravity craft right now, exploring the cosmos, right? Meanwhile, we're stuck here having to be obligated to pay, certain bills of things that in theory we're not even paying because God knows if it's not even real, right? It's something we give meaning to. And again, I can understand, seriously, guys, I can understand why people get so depressed much more easily and quickly, because now, especially nowadays with lockdowns and stuff like that, you can't go out as much, you can't go to the movies as much, or it's just not the same anymore. So it's kind of like, okay, you watch all your Netflix, you watch all your stuff like that, but then after that, what do? You have all you order the food you want to order because you're locked down and things like that. Maybe you went on the vacation you wanted to go. Maybe certain part of your country or the place of the world is the lockdowns have eased a little bit, right? Maybe the stuff you like to do is now opened up again. It's not the same, but I understand why people are depressed, because again, it's just like the clip I put up on my Instagram a few days ago from that movie. I forgot what it was called. Sorry, my bad. But anyways, it was basically a government official telling a doctor who found out about aliens saying, what would you rather have us do? Right? In the sense of, would you want the president of the United States to go in front of national television and tell everyone, listen, they've been abducting people. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. The guy makes a point. It's a valid point, right? And then he said the thing that really stuck with me, right? Which is that he goes, our system globally, not just America, our system works like a 30-year mortgage. It's a cycle, right? So again, let's even bring it back to what the core concept of, say, like, the 50s and the 60s was. It was, you have a nice family. At the time, it was either, mostly the husband worked and things like that. And that was it. You had a house, maybe you had a little cottage, and then that was it. Right. So again, and by the way, I believe that we should go back to that. But let me make something very clear. Not the thing where women shouldn't work. I'm not trying to say that. What I'm trying to say is that the idea that one job should be able to provide for, say, a couple kids and a husband or a wife, regardless if the wife or the husband is working. That's just my that's just my opinion. Right now, again, here's the thing. What is the next paradigm we're shifting into? And I say that because this whole idea of, the world working on a 30-year mortgage, the masses are waking up to that right now. Again, that it might not be enough people are waking up, but enough are waking up to make a ruckus. Right. So the question then becomes, what is the next paradigm? Is it going to be human controlled? Will it be more extraterrestrially influenced? Is it going to be so complex that we can't even comprehend it, even though we're trying to at this very moment, right? And again, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this live stream, guys, because I mean, I looked at all the stuff. Talk about a week to take a quick little break, but I looked at all the stuff to, when I do my research, I allocate, okay, this will be for the Kraken. Maybe I'll put this article in both the Kraken and the public episode. I got all these papers on my desk in my studio, and I'm just like, I got to do a live stream to cover this because too many things tie into too many other things, right? So, let's see. Cozy Got Soul. Sorry, guys, that I haven't been reading the comments, but Cozy Got Soul says, isn't it weird that they made flying cars and the first flying car did his first test for 35 minutes in the air and it succeeded? When are they going to put that out there, people? Oh, man, I think, again, I'm not trying to say this to exaggerate. Because of some of the things that have occurred to me in the past few weeks, I really do believe that they have things that even we wouldn't be able to, I guess you could say, imagine on Star Trek or what have you, right? And again, it's or even Star Wars, but I'd say it's probably closer to Star Wars than Star Trek. But so let's take a look here. This is from USA Today. This is from a couple days ago. Scientists have found 28 novel viruses with surreal genetic signatures in 14,400-year-old ice cores from the Tibetan Plateau in China, and most of them are unlike anything ever seen before. So again, we can talk about how, this is just another form of, they always knew about it. It's just they've now brought it to the public domain of the scientific realm. Again, we could talk about how maybe the story's not even true, right? Maybe this is completely fabricated. This is the problem, guys. And this is the thing when people say to me, Dave, how come, you don't really stand, in some cases, you don't stand by a certain perspective? Guys, it's not because I'm trying to play every angle. It's because, pardon my English, I got to speculate because the government's fucking lying so much. You know what I mean? And when I say the government, not just the North American one, but all of them, right? So again, this is what I'm saying. I really don't want to disrespect people that are actually trying to do legitimate journalism, but we're at a point now where we see what's happening and we can't ignore that, right? So, again, could this be an article of, as a form of fear mongering, right? I don't know. The next thing I wanted to cover too is here, French President Macron changes his mobile number and phone amid the Pegasus spyware scandal. Changing your phone and number is the only way to get rid of this military-grade zero-click spy malware. Even a hardware reset does not scrap it. So again, look, this Pegasus spyware, for those who don't know, it was Israeli technology from my understanding, and they were basically selling it for extremely high amounts of large amounts of money to spy on journalists, world leaders, things like that. And it was basically, they were selling it to, from my understanding, more authoritarian dictator-based countries and nations and things like that. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I think that this whole Pegasus software, this whole Pegasus program is, again, don't get me wrong. This is a massive story. This should not be allowed at all. But if you want my honest opinion, guys, this was just something that slipped through the cracks. Whether this was this was one faction of the elites trying to oust another faction for some type of, tit for tat type of strategical move, I don't rule that out. And when you say, Dave, what do you mean by oust? Well, oust, all you got to do is leak this program to the media, and anyone revolved around that program is likely to go down over time, whether on the front end or the back end, whether it's, they're quietly murdered and it looks like a car crash or, a natural cause of death, or whether they're actually, removed politically on the front end of things, right? It's hard to say. I mean, this is the problem with speculating about the intelligence community, because I would dare to argue that even the intelligence guys don't know what's going on half the time, because, again, that's why they call it intelligence, right? You'd like to think you know what's going on with, with respect to your objective and your mission and things like that. But, we could speculate very easily that, behind the scenes, again, there's nothing to this. I'm just giving an example that Netanyahu, former Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel, was supposed to win an election, this past election, because he had certain safeguards in place from other, resources and people around him that were helping him. And maybe some of those people ended up falling through and not helping him at the last minute. And he somehow had this Pegasus software scandal leaked. I'm not saying that's what happened at all. I'm just saying this is how things happen, right? the puppet show is for the masses, and it's for the elites to get rid of certain players on the board, right? Maybe not always the case, but let's see. Again, folks, I'll be honest with you. One of the beautiful things about doing this live stream is we're all trying to figure this out together, right? Let's see. Oh, Cody, thank you. Blue asks, is tea and coffee a long-term poison? I don't know about tea. I would, coffee, obviously. There's, debates about that. Let's see. Team Sour 86 says, I have not taken the vaccine. I'm not going to. And again, Team Sour, this is what I'm trying to say. We should be living in a world, in my opinion, where people in the chat right now, for example, in our live stream chat, can comment their opinion about the vaccine, and the stream would not get taken down. But that's not the case, unfortunately, right? Again, what people saying in the comments, I'm not going to get the vaccine, that's totally fine. Again, if YouTube removes us for that, then that's just. I don't think that it's that far-fetched. That recent North Korean defector had said that she is quite frightened by some of the academic textbooks that she sees within North America, because again, it's confining the way of thinking. It's not expanding perceptions, it's closing it. And so let's take a look here. By the way, Germany's been getting hit a lot with cyber attacks, quite a bit. Let's see here very quickly. This I wanted to talk about. This is interesting, okay? A leaked internal memo from CNN's Washington bureau chief says that the, quote, carrot, end quote, is no longer working in terms of convincing Americans to get vaccinated, and that authorities need to start using the, quote, stick, end quote. These are CNN executives' thoughts on the unvaccinated. So, again, the fact that they, as alleged, unbiased news, and again, I'm not going to try to expose CNN. We all know what they really are, right? But ultimately, when we look at things like this, does that not indicate that CNN is taking orders from someone? Again, let's just play within, let's color within the lines here, okay, guys? Let's just go up the ladder metaphorically. Who are these executives sending emails to one another about? Orders. They're sending emails to one another about orders from the higher ups, right? Which are, again, the higher up executives, or maybe the CEO of CNN. Where is the CEO of CNN getting this from? You think he's just sitting in his office all day and calling the shots himself? No, the White House. It's pretty simple. I mean, it's not even a conspiracy. We all know that, Fox News tends to get along much better with conservative administrations, and CNN and MSNBC get along much better with Democratic ones, right? So again, when they say that the carrot and the stick is not working, it really makes you think. Again, this is why I'm saying the whole thing of questioning everything, unfortunately, has to be brought into play here, because you question literally every single thing, and we don't know what they're saying, because they're just emailing each other the carrot and the stick. What? That's supposed to be first off, what does that even represent? Does it represent a certain story that they're holding back on? Because if you want to talk about a carrot and a stick story, you remember that ABC anchor, or I believe ABC from 2015 or 2016, who said that she was forced to scrap the entire Epstein story before it even became a thing globally. Again, I'm not trying to lead anyone into any direction or another, but the answer seems to be pretty self-evident, right? Let's take a look here. Hold on. Let's see. Gelton Inc. says psychedelics are the key. When this civilization collapses, the survivors will reconnect with Mother Earth and probably ETs/interdimensionals and rebuild a new society. Very interesting point. Let's see here. President of Mexico calls for the release of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange and Pegasus malware scandal. And he said, quote, no one should be punished for revealing facts, end quote. Okay, so again, I asked some, I guess you could say, some friends of mine that are very heavily into the belief of the North American system more so than others. And again, to each their own. And they said, well, the Mexican president is, overgeneralizing this. Okay, so let's take a look very quickly at the WikiLeaks story, right? If we take a look at the fact that Julian Assange claimed that his sources were not from Russia. It recently came out that Trump had sent a Republican congresswoman, I believe, don't quote me on this, guys, I believe it was from Texas, quietly, an envoy, to go see Julian Assange in prison and say, look, Trump will offer you a pardon if you reveal your source. And Assange will not reveal his source. Now, there's two sides of this. There's one side saying that, yes, the Russians were Assange's source, right? There's another side that says that basically he's still in jail right now because he's refusing to give up his source because of journalistic standards. It's hard to say now, because looking back, people say, oh, well, all the things that were leaked out by WikiLeaks tended to target Democrats much more. But the question is this too, folks. Was there some type of subversion or infiltration through, via the NSA, the CIA, you name it, or some type of, proxy third-party group that leaked a little more things towards the Democratic side that, was damaging the Democrats more than the Republicans? And the reason I say this is because if we take a look at the phone call that Julian Assange gave to, I believe it was the United States Embassy he called. This was 3 or 4 years ago, saying that he had an ex-employee who was recently fired, who has access to some potentially damaging information, if I'm not mistaken. And they completely ignored it. Julian Assange says, please let whoever you need to know, and they ignored it. And now they framed him as a villain. Now, with that being said, let's play the other side of this as well, too. If his sources are the Russians and he's just not giving it up because, he's being threatened because his family might get killed or something like this, then I'm all for the other way too. I'm not trying to defend Assange just because, the establishment is going after him. There might be, again, I say this carefully, but we have to also consider the possibility there might be some cases, not a lot, but some cases where there is a narrowly confined narrative being pushed out by the mainstream media that may, in fact, I guess you could say, disseminate into, truth, so to speak. But the problem with that is that those type of truths pushed out by the media tend to generally get wrapped up with a bunch of other lies as well. So let me see. And also, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, in Washington, D.C., they've recently allocated a new intelligence agency. I believe it was $2 billion in change to a new branch of the Capitol Police. I believe strictly an intelligence and surveillance thing. Now, again, this comes down to the whole thing of, just like they did with the 9/11 Commission. Nancy Pelosi wanted to do it January 6th. The Republicans said no, so now they're going to do a committee, right? And I'll be honest with you, as a quick little side note, when I saw that she rejected Jim Jordan, I kind of laughed because, Jim Jordan, he does his thing up there. But let's read some comments here. Again, the argument is that, sorry for the rambling, guys, but the argument is that this is just to justify more surveillance in the name of, terrorism, white supremacy, things like that. Now, I'm not saying those things don't exist. I want to be very clear, but there's got to be a middle ground here. The one side is too much one way, in my opinion. The other side is too much the other way, right? Let's see. Cozy Got Soul asks Dave, do you feel like they're doing all this is because they don't want an actual human being to evolve to a state of enlightenment that surpasses, like, let's say, Jesus/Muhammad status? Okay, I got a great thing, Cozy Got Soul. I appreciate that. Let me get a glass of water. I have a story for you guys that ties into politics, aliens, all of it. I'll be right back in like 10 seconds. All right, so let's take a look here. So let's just recap that quickly. All right, so Cozy Got Soul asks, Dave, do you feel like they're doing all this is because they don't want an actual human being to evolve to state of enlightenment that surpasses, like, let's say, Jesus or Muhammad status? Okay, putting the Jesus and Muhammad status aside for a second, Cozy Got Soul, I appreciate the question very much, and I'll tell you why. There have recently been a handful of Russian generals that have come out, retired ones, I believe 3 or 4, if I'm not mistaken, and I have the article on my phone, where they basically said that, yes, aliens exist, we as humans are actually the result of a hybrid experimentation. But he said this. One of the generals said in their video, or I guess you could say testimony from their home. They said we were able in the 1970s and 80s to contact multiple extraterrestrial civilizations without drugs or chemicals. He said that the Russians discovered that the human body is like an antenna, right? Okay, makes sense. I mean, that's not really, we talk about this on the show all the time, right? He said that they had to tune the human brain's energy contour frequency. Now, I'll be honest with you folks. I'm giving you guys a little bit of insight into some upcoming episodes. If anyone could help me figure out what he means by energy contour, I'd appreciate it. Now, he said he refused to say in the video how they summoned the UFOs and the aliens mentally. And the reason is because he said that it's so easy to do that anyone could do it. And again, this goes back to the point that all of us have been standing behind generally, which is that this is why the elites don't want these things to come to fruition, because it shows how accessible things are right in front of our faces. Now, you might be saying, Dave, what does summoning aliens have to do with what Cozy asked about, human beings evolving to certain states of consciousness? I feel like, folks, the natural evolution of humans elevating to the next state of consciousness, or re-elevating, because you could argue we've been suppressed historically, right? Is at every aspect trying to be suppressed, because that state of consciousness will by default put us in communication with other beings, whether from other planets or dimensions. And that's my theory. Now, this general said as well, too, that they had the most success during this experiment when they did it with women, meaning that basically what he's saying is a different version of the CE5 protocols, if you want to call it, right? Let's just say mental summoning without drugs or chemicals that he claimed, at least. Now, if we're going by his word, he said that the most success they had with summoning and communicating with these beings was when they had groups of 5 to 6 females that were doing this mental summoning compared to males. Now, they were successful with males as well, yes, but females more often, which is interesting because, again, there's that, depending on, what religion, culture, or I guess you could say story you ascribe to, if you will, there is a very strong proposal that women by nature are far more intuitive than men, right? They're more in tune to their feminine side. That's the case with some men too. Some men are just naturally born a little more intuitive. Some say that that's more of the feminine side of things, right? So again, it really makes you think that it might be that simple to summon these beings. And and again, sorry for the rambling, Cozy, but the idea is that I feel like by default it would bring us into that next level. And if it brings us into that next level, we can then communicate with these beings without the need of our government. And what happens, if these beings give us things like 0-point energy, or if these beings give us things that could cure most diseases, which, by the way, the Russian general also said this as well. He said they had given us, and he said we still have it now, but he goes, I can't comment on it too much. He goes, they have given us technology that can cure most diseases on this planet, most issues, right? They also gave us technology that could make every single person on this planet be self-reliant. Now, the next question I ask myself is this: why would somebody, for example, like President Putin, allow an ex-general to do this on national television? I'll be honest with you, folks. I think Putin gave the go-ahead for this, or at the very least he knew about it, and just him knowing about it and not stopping it was signal to the general enough to do this. Why? I've been thinking about this a lot lately, about the why, for example, people like Putin don't come out and say that aliens exist and things like that, right? And that they've been working with us and all that stuff. Unfortunately, folks, and I wish I saw this earlier, in my opinion, it would give other countries and other adversaries reason to say, look at how crazy Putin is, or to say, look, Putin's talking about aliens. It would be a perfect smear job for the CIA. Just my opinion. It would be a perfect smear job. Putin can go right now. He can, because I'll be honest, Putin strikes me as the kind of guy who doesn't give a shit about anything. He could go on live television right now and say, yeah, there's aliens, but the CIA will jump on that like there's no tomorrow. They'll get every resource in the world that they have in terms of their media connections, every journalist on every payroll in every goddamn country, from, Austria to New York, you know what I mean? To start writing articles like, look, he says they're real and this and that, blah, blah, blah. This is just my opinion. So, again, there's things like that. Let's take a look. This was a few days ago, but a magnitude 7.0 earthquake off the coast of Panama. Yeah, see, like all these. Now, for example, we see. Also, I liked what Putin said about the vaccine, by the way, when he was asked. He said, he goes, we're not going to force it. Now, again, things could have changed from what he said, but just if we're taking him by his word, he goes, I'm not going to force it. He goes, I took it, my daughter took it, but he goes, if people don't want it, I'm not going to push it on them. Again, he knows, in my opinion, folks, that this is like a perfect, I guess you could say, intelligence angle to play that as, because he knows that's going to get national coverage, right? Not by Western media, but enough people have phones and the internet now to see, and computers. So he knows that that's going to get coverage. It's going to get him more brownie points with the masses around the world. And I'll be honest, folks, for those who think that Putin doesn't care about his image, in my opinion, he does. One of the key elements of an intelligence, I guess you could say, operation is perception. It doesn't matter if you actually. It's unfortunate, but it's true. It's just like, when people pretend to be richer than they really are. Like, for example, Epstein. It doesn't matter how much money he had. It mattered how much it looked like he had, right? So, and as long as he could, he was bankrolled for what he was doing. As long as he stayed shrouded in mystery, that was it, right? By the way, guys, there's some very deep, steep connections we're making this coming week with with Iran, Contra, Epstein, Mossad, extraterrestrials, you name it. Let's see. Johnny asks, how can we ever get out of this system when the brainwashing is generational and most people aren't even interested in the truth? Well, Johnny, that's exactly the problem. And I feel like and I could be wrong, COVID woke people up that wouldn't have woken people up in another way. But we can make that argument about other things as well, too. Right. So let's see. People's Currency said Putin went hard and got rid of the central banking system in Russia. Yes. Yeah. How can we ever? Here's the thing, Johnny. I've been doing a lot of reading for the past few days, a lot of research to prepare for this week, and whether it's books or articles. And one of the things I found the most is that it's almost like the ingrainment of the corrupt structure is so like dug right in to the system globally that very few countries you could actually just put new people in there and things will literally change. So it's very tough, and I myself don't know where I stand, because it comes down to the perception of should the West have and Europe have so much control over the rest of the world and things like that. We see now, for example, certain things. Look at what's happening in Africa, right? We see what's happening with the CIA there. Sorry, give me a sec. Thomas says, Dave, why don't you ever say woman when referring to the plural and woman when referring to the singular? Yeah, my mistake, Thomas. Just a bad habit of mine. My apologies. But if you take a look, folks, in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think the CIA's next target is Africa. Take a look at the attempted assassinations of all these different world leaders, right? This is something that, again, I could not cover in a Kraken episode. Look at the attempted assassinations. Interestingly, and again, I'm going to leave it at this because, I got to be careful because of YouTube. A lot of these countries where their presidents or leaders have attempted assassinations, or in some of them, they were successful. A lot of people don't know. A lot of these nations were also nations that either initially refused the United States' COVID vaccines, were hesitant, or flat out denied them. So look, I'm not trying to say that this goes back to the CIA. Obviously, if it is, we'll never be able to prove it. My point, though, is that, again, there is clearly a control structure that is setting things in place right now, saying, hey, listen, you don't want our shipment from this particular company? Too bad. All right. You know what? Oh my God. Holy crap. The president got killed. Oh, geez. Now we got to have a snap election. Oh, my gosh. What do you know? This president just so happens to favor the stuff that we want to do in his country. It's guys, in my opinion, the people, the elites of the world, do they have more money than us? Do they have more resources and access and connections? Absolutely. But they are setting up a system and they are that is, I guess you could say, just as penetrable as how can I word this? The system is built by people no smarter than you and I, in my opinion. Yes, are there people smarter in certain areas of life than others? Of course, that's just life. But you know what I mean? Like, this is definitely something that I think, in my opinion, is what's bringing people to become more and more aware of what's happening, right? And again, the whole thing is, these intelligence agencies, when they do these things, they don't really care if they're blamed. It's just, can you prove it, right? So let's see. Johnny F asks, do you know what was on the ship that blocked the Suez Canal? Um, I think I do, but I obviously, Johnny, if I wasn't there myself, I don't want to say with certainty. It's on the Patreon, because I definitely can't talk about that publicly. Let's see. The Observer says the system is built by psychopaths with money and power. Absolutely, absolutely. Yuda, oh, thank you, Yuda. Blue says sleep paralysis and often false awakenings. Stephanie says a final judgment is coming. I would like to be shown truths first. Well, again, this is another thing that's made me think about all of this as well too, which is that I've been looking at a lot of Jacques Vallée's work, and he, again, because of his credentials and things like that, you can't really discredit the guy. So he has years and years of documentation and studies and things like that. And his point that he makes is that, allegedly the UFO craft that we see in the sky, in some cases, is not actually what the craft really looks like. It's simply a holographic projection or something of the sort. And I would think to myself, why would these beings want to present their craft in a different shape or object, if you will? I understand why they may want to project themselves, their bodies, in a different way, if they're very strange looking or they know that we'll be scared. But actually, a little bit of a fun quick story, guys. As I've been doing research for all the content for this coming out this week, I've found amongst 2 or 3 different sources that have no affiliation to one another, that there are within the secret space program. And again, this is in the gray area of the internet, because obviously, you won't find this on Google, that every time in the Solar Warden secret space program, humans in other galaxies and other planets head to other alien planets, and those aliens are told that humans are coming. Even these aliens fear us because they know how self-destructive humans are. So again, I don't know if we are the children of the universe, but I would say, assuming that there is consistency to these claims, then we're definitely on the lower level, in my opinion. Let's see. Dylan asks, Zed, will this be up on audio? I don't know, brother. Just because YouTube handles the stream after, I can see what I can do, but no promises, unfortunately. Let's take a look. Good commenter says, Deep State is controlling everything. It's obvious. The whole Corona stuff are paving the way for New World Order. All of these so-called feuds between USA, Iran, Russia, all of them are theater of the world. Well, it's interesting you say that, good commenter, because what I found in my research, again, I could be wrong, I found that there seems to be a conflation between what goes on the back end, between the intelligence world, and what goes on the front end, meaning that some moves on the front end do seem to be legitimate. Right. If we take a look, for example, like they say, again, it's a controversial topic, but the Syrian gas attack back in 2018, allegedly, Assad gassing his own people. To make something very clear, I subscribe to the theory of the OPCW cover up. And then at the United Nations, they wouldn't even let the hearing happen where they said that they believe that children were not gassed. There's a whole theory that, this was a false flag in order to justify the United States bombing Syria, right? Essentially. Now, I'm not saying that people did not die. What I'm saying is that at this point, I am inclined to believe a gas attack did not occur. Again, that doesn't mean people didn't die. We have to remember what false flags are too, right? False flags don't mean that people fake their deaths and things like that either, right? But, and when people say things like, oh, you really think that United States or the West or the mainstream media would do it? Yeah, let's look back at history really quickly. Gulf of Tonkin, this is basically at this point proven and basically admitted. But the whole thing is that, well, the people of then aren't the people now. True, but again, going back to what I was saying about an hour and a half ago, what happens when the ideology it shifts, if you will, or the ideology is consistent with the incoming people. Quick example, if we take a look at an article I'm reading now about the Iran-Contra thing, let me read this for you guys very quickly if I can find it. Anyways, CIA Director William Casey told Attorney General William Barr, who was Attorney General under Reagan, same William Barr who was Attorney General under Trump, to reach out to Governor Clinton, Bill Clinton of Arkansas, saying, listen, Will Casey, CIA director, wanted me to tell you that your state has been the most valuable asset in our operation. And as long as you don't fuck up, pardon my English, then you will have a shot at getting the position you always wanted. And that was William Barr talking to Governor Bill Clinton back in the 80s. And he also said, CIA Director Casey wanted me to tell you that we are the new guard. So what I'm trying to say here, folks, is that, again, yes, is it not the people of before? Right. But again, you notice how they handpick these people, maybe not all the time, but enough to keep that infrastructure in place. You see what I'm saying? And this is not just an American thing, in my opinion. But anyways, you take a look at that, right? And you take a look at, just the whole thing. That whole Iran-Contra thing was crazy, but it just goes to show you that regardless, Republican or Democrat, you see how the old guard hands it off to the new guard in the positions that are necessary. You know, to say that they have a 50-year plan in terms of the back end of things. I wouldn't rule it out. Why do I say that? Let's take a look at some things that I have the documents on my phone, but they're basically clustered up. Anyways, William Barr, basically right before he left last year in December, or he stepped down or whatever it was to spend time with his family before Trump's administration ended, he basically, to sum it up, he pulled a bunch of shady shit to fully cover up the Iran-Contra thing, basically, honestly. So let's take a look here. Thomas says, I think the next locale shift for the CIA will be South America. The CIA already spent most of the 70s and 90s in Africa. I mean, they'll always be there in some form, but I think South America is it. Very good point, Tom. Yeah, good point. Let's take a look here. Maureen Smith says, you should look into and or interview Dr. Catherine Horton on YouTube about the systems. Interesting. Thank you, I will. Let's take a look here. Johnny says, having free and open discussions about this sort of stuff is essential. I agree, Johnny. I'm going to be doing this much more, by the way. Where do you all talk about this usually? Well, Johnny, we have a Patreon. You get access to Telegram, Discord. We have a very, very active Telegram community, which is awesome to see. We're all it's basically this live chat right now on steroids. Like it's the stuff that we cannot talk about, but it's in there. And look, we have a great community. People, we try in a respective way to, debunk one another respectfully, to question things on purpose, play devil's advocate on purpose, right? There's so many things that people have. Let's see. Patrick says this show gives conspiracy theorists a bad name. Hey, Patrick, I respect that. If that's your opinion, I really do. And I appreciate you coming into the chat. And I'm not being sarcastic. I mean that because, again, it's important for myself and the audience to hear every angle of what's going on. Because, again, if we just stay in this sort of tunnel vision view of things, in my opinion, what's the difference between us and, CNN, right? That's my opinion. So let's take a look. If you guys want to comment about some stuff you want me to shoot the shit on or whatever, but let's take a look at this. Saudi Arabia's state oil giant, Saudi Aramco, is facing a $50 million cyber extortion over 1 terabyte leaked company data hosted on the darknet, according to the Associated Press. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So again, these things are just going to keep happening. Look, when we look at if we read the appropriate literature as to what really happened in the 60s, 70s, 80s with a handful of events, not just Iran-Contra, but how a lot of things are tied together, you'll know that these intelligence agencies have been doing this for a long time. The only difference is it's now shifted to the cyber world, right? And it actually did starting in the 80s, in my opinion. That's how, ahead they were. Let's see. Thank you, Jelton. I appreciate it. Let's see. Thomas says that's not a theory. Visa via Syria chemical attack. It is approved and documented fact. I'm not sure specifically, Thomas, what documents you're referring to. I just, again, I'm not trying to disprove you, sir, specifically. It's just if any of the documents reference Bellingcat or anything like that, that's the issue that I take there. And especially that one of the people that raised concerns about the OPCW cover-up, there is footage that leaked in a private UN council meeting, if you want to call it, and they tried to silence him, saying like, these kids actually did die, so how dare you question that? And he said, well, listen, is there no room for freedom of speech even in the United Nations anymore? But no, Thomas, I see what you're saying. I'm not trying to, argue back with you or what have you. But this is what I mean, guys. This is what we do in the Telegram groups too, right? Let's see. Third Coast Royalty says the bankers are running the world. Well, again, some people argue, it's not the protocols of the elders of Zion. It's not the Illuminati. It's in your face. It's the Bank of Tokyo, the Bank of London. It's the Federal Reserve. It's, the different factions of the elites. Now, again, that's the idea, right? So this whole thing of perception, where the mainstream media nowadays wants all of us to think, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. You think that they're in the shadows. No, a lot of these people that I would dare to say go to these, ridiculously weird, the sex parties and all those things like that. Some of them, we see them on TV. I mean, case in point, right? Again, you want me to name some names? I'm not saying they go to the sex parties, but people that would be aware of such things would be people like Mike Pompeo, Dick Cheney, Attorney General William Barr, Bill Clinton, guys that, again, not associated with any political orientation, but guys that were a part of the old guard that helped the old guard transition to the new, in my opinion, my perspective. Let's see. Brandon says, I try not to worry too much about what happens in the physical world. I'm more worried about the negative spiritual beings manipulating all of this. We are spirits having a physical experience. Well, Brandon, that's a good point, which is why a lot of people nowadays that are just becoming more self-awakened and enlightened, people have told me, people have emailed me, they'll say, Dave, I go walk into a grocery store and I feel anxiety like I've never felt before. Right. And then when you take a step back and you look at the big picture, this started happening to them right when they started, waking up and reading certain things and realizing things are not what they seem. And again, it seems that there's that esoteric sense of sensitivity. Let's see. Good commenter says, one of the problems is that most normal people just don't care, like the news. Pentagon put out on UFOs and most people didn't care. Well, that's the other thing too, good commenter, right? It's the masses too, right? Who can we blame? There's so many different angles we can look at in that regard, right? If people are actually more interested to see Kanye West's new album or to hear it early than to for example, see what the Pentagon has to say about UFOs, and that's the other point too, right? People's Currency says conspiracy theorists today wear masks and face shields. I can't really comment on that too much because of the live stream, People's Currency, but I see your point. Humboldt says even the words conspiracy theorists were invented by the CIA. Yep. Let's see. Adesh Jalota said people would care if the media was not corrupted. Right. And that's another thing too. Blue asks, did the CIA release documents saying that we're in an energy hologram? I believe they did, yes. The Stargate process, I believe it is. At least it subscribes and leads us to that conclusion, right? So, sorry, what was I going to say here? If the media was not corrupted. I just had a brain fart. Let's see, Daniel says boarding passes needed, shot needed. Well, again, you see, President Macron in France saying that, Prime Minister Trudeau. Let's see here. Gelton makes a good point, in my opinion. Gelton says, people like to fit into groups and think they are right about something. So even without the media, they'd follow some other BS. It all has to do with the level of consciousness the person is at. That's a very good point. Keela says, you sound and look like a controlled I guess what you're trying to say, Keela, is you sound and look like what a controlled opposition would look like. Hey, to each their own. I mean, I guess that's a good thing, Keela, because it kind of, I guess I'm doing my job right, I guess. Someone, some of you might remember this, a couple months ago, someone on Reddit said that I was paid by the CIA, and there's a documentary coming out on me soon. I mean, if there is, I'd love to see it. And if there's money waiting for me from the CIA, I'd love to go pick it up. Let's see. JB says Pentagon drop didn't get attention because nobody believes what they say anyways. Well, that's the other thing too, right? That's the other thing as well. There was a very old quote. I think it was from a Roman, not a philosopher, but they said, I think it was a male. He said something like, give them food and entertainment or something like that, and they'll always be happy. I think you guys know what I'm referring to, but that's the idea, right? The entertainment aspect of it nowadays is, people would rather see or listen to Kanye's album than try to get to the bottom of what the Pentagon is trying to say. Now, again, nothing against the music. I love music, but you know what I mean, right? Overlord Mills asks, do you think the Lacerta files are real? Do you think we'll ever get a full reptilian shift on TV? I think some of the Lacerta files are real. I think that just like with other things, they got in there, they muddied the waters a bit, which actually brings me to another interesting point too. Sorry, hold on. T. Nelson says, saw a video last night that said that military leaders are being told to get their houses in order and make good with their families, that something big is about to go down. Well, I mean, look, there's a lot of shit going down. I mean, there's a lot of things that are right in front of our faces, right? If even on a global level, like, I mean, in my humble opinion, unless there's some type of, some secret chip manufacturing that the West and Europe has, not China, I want to make it very clear, because the people of China are amazing people, and I truly mean that. I'm referring to the CCP. If the CCP takes Taiwan, though, good luck with chips for computers, cars. You want to talk about a shortage? Now, again, unless this, the US or Europe has something up their sleeve that we don't know or I don't know, but good luck trying to get that to happen, right? Sorry, what was I saying earlier here? John Miltonberger says, because Donda's fire. Yeah, I heard about that. Donda, the album being very good. Yeah. Thank you, Yuda, for that quote. Give them bread and circuses and they will never revolt. Right. Hold on. Let's see. John Miltonberger says, don't say you'd love to be a shill. No, it's not that I'd love to be a shill. It's just that I can't change people's opinions about me, right? So, Jelton asks, why do you think all the billionaires are trying to get off this place? They know something is coming. I'm sure they hear things in the sense that I'm not even kidding. Word of mouth spreads quickly amongst these guys. But, the story I was going to mention very quickly was, oh my gosh, what the heck? Okay, hold on. Koyo says, David Cross, the comedian, put out a stand-up special show in 2019. In that special, he makes a joke about a bombing at the Tokyo Olympics in the first 10 minutes. Timelines are being meshed and warped. Oh, I certainly subscribe to that without a shadow of a doubt. If these aliens have technology and we as humans have gotten a hold of it, whether, taking it or being given it or what have you, that can interface with thought, why timelines why the possibility of timelines, intermerging would be off the table is beyond me, in my personal opinion. Keela asks, would you take the vaccine? Yes or no would suffice. No. But again, I'm not trying to press my views onto any of you guys. Anyways, we take a look, for example, very quickly at Robert Bigelow, right? The guy who's worth, is he a billionaire or he's worth hundreds of millions? Anyways, if I'm not mistaken, he dumped like 100 million in liquid cash into trying to find out the real, things behind not just Roswell, but the extraterrestrial cover-up and things like that. It was very simple. It just goes to show you that, even with that kind of cash, what did they do? The shadow government, the CIA, you name it, right? All these guys, they put 5 or 6 individuals around Mr. Bigelow that, again, regardless of what you think of Mr. Bigelow, they persuaded him in many different directions. And he said, looking back, he goes, I was clearly the target of an intelligence operation. It's right there, Oh, he is a billionaire. Okay, thank you. Loop Ramos says there's one agent out of 20 people. That's true. Yeah. John Miltonberger asks thoughts on flat Earth. We got someone coming on, I believe, this week to discuss that. But I think, I'll be honest with you folks, I don't subscribe to just a purely flat concept, but a concave Earth, in my opinion, or a pocket dimension type Earth is something that I would certainly subscribe to, particularly when a lot of these creatures seem to be able to span vast distances, create vast amounts of damage under deep below the subterranean global network that even humans and aliens have. And for some reason, there's no rupture that comes above. Now, yes, we could say maybe there's some technological apparatus that's been put in place to ensure that it only at worst disseminates as like, an earthquake or something like this. But ultimately, I think that I honestly think there are certain parts of the earth that are pocket dimensions, where again, pocket dimension is the inside of something is much larger than what you see externally before going into it, whether it's a car, a room, or what have you, right? So now I do want to say, let's see here. Hold on. Gelatin. Oh, another thing too, guys, I want to say very quickly as well that I recently learned, and again, maybe this is something that I learned and you guys already know, but I don't want to say this with absolute fact, right? But I'm pretty confident when I say that when it comes to intelligence agents and officers overseas and doing things like that, regardless of the mission, whether it's extraterrestrial, whether it's a terrorist thing, whether it's whatever it is, there's a big misunderstanding or a misconception that, and this ties in with Epstein as well, that intelligence agents are always secret and nobody knows who they are. Why is that not always the case? I'm sure that's the case in certain missions, depending on the context. But think about it like this. If you're an intelligence agent and you've been placed in a country, let's just say, I don't know, you've been placed in Syria, for example, to just collect data over the course of 6 months about a particular terrorist group or something like this, right? The people need to know who to bring their information to. They need to know who the intelligence agents are. There's a big misconception that the CIA and Mossad, MI6, you name it, all these guys are very secretive all around the world. In some cases, absolutely. But when it comes to gathering data, people need to know where to bring their information to. Do you see what I'm saying? So, and the reason why I say that is this. If you guys look at a lot of the recent Epstein documentaries, right? The Epstein documentaries, all of them, whether it's the Netflix one or what have you name it, they've all talked about how Epstein used to go around and brag to his friends over the course of years that he used to bug his house and his private island, that he was a spy, that he was a this, he was a that. Why do you think he was doing that? Yes, maybe he had a bit of a big mouth. He was a talker. He talked too much, sure. But the rumors had to spread because people needed to know who to give their secrets to. You don't think that there were certain cases where, for example, a certain celebrity or high-profile person said, someone screwed me, or part of my English, fucked me over in a business deal, but I know this about them. I'm not going to do it myself. I'm going to take it to Epstein because he, I've heard things about him. That's how these intelligence agents and spies get the word out. But again, because it's rumors, nothing could be confirmed. But people need to know where to take their information to. And that point really stuck with me personally. Again, it's just, I'm not saying that that's the case in every mission. Again, there are many different, I guess you could say objectives, and everything depends on, the duration of the mission. They do things like OPE, operational preparation of the environment, right? And things like that. So again, but it really stuck out to me because again, it's like when people accuse me of, being a disinformation agent or something like this. Well, again, folks, for me to be a disinformation agent, I would have to start spreading rumors, especially if I were, let's assume I'm an agent, right? Trying to infiltrate the community, right? I would not go about it in this way if I were, if I were to actually be a spy. Now I'm using myself as an example, right? But just in general, you have to take a look at the way in which there are certain infiltrations or temporary, I guess you could say, metaphorical incursions into certain communities, not just the UFO community, right? But again, it's really cool. I just find it really cool how it works. People need to know. It's kind of, and it makes sense because it's just like, back in the day when organized crime was much more out there, like say, the mob in New York, in America, for example, everyone knew someone who knew a mobster, right? If you had a problem, someone owed you money, you couldn't go through the courts. Everyone knew someone that knew a connected person. It's the same idea. I feel like it's the same concept. Everyone knows someone that, anyone who's someone within that world knows someone directly, or in my opinion, at the very least, knows someone indirectly that, has access to intelligence resources, right? So, yeah. Let me see. Oh, Gelton said, After watching you on the shroom stream, there's no way you're an agent. Oh, people be like mosquitoes eating my Doritos. Yeah, I remember that was funny. That was funny. Um, let's see. Well, and again, I'll be honest with you guys. I don't blame people for wanting to ask that question, because the last thing I want to try to be is someone within this community who sits there and says that what I'm telling you is right. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is we're all trying to figure this out together, right? So this is why even when I do the news stuff, as you guys all know, I don't, when there's certain things that come, when they say from Israel or the Middle East, I don't know how reporting is there. I don't know, if I'm not on the ground myself. That's why I say allegedly a lot. So, let's see here. Sal says, disinformation agent, whatever happened to the base principle of science to always be exploring, asking questions, and constantly testing? It's a great point, Sal. Again, people like Brett Weinstein and Eric Weinstein have said this. I got to be really careful mentioning Brett's name nowadays because of the whole thing with Dr. Robert Malone. But again, that's the other thing too. I have a lot of friends in Canada that are in university and college for biomedicine, evolutionary biology, and they tell me, they go, Dave, for something that is supposed to be so open and experimental and so vast in terms of the way in which we explore things and try to discover new things and make progress, the scientific community is very ingrained and narrowly enclosed in the sense that, like, no, this is the way it has to be, too bad. And my friends know this because they're being taught this through the academic institutions, which are arguably the very problem in many regards, right? Let's see here. Let's see. Yuda says, you need to explore Crater Earth, Gen Z. It's the truth from what my heart can tell. Well, that's what I mean by concave Earth, right? Sort of like a golf ball, little rivets, if you want to call it. Let's see. Adesh asks, do you think there will be one world government? If the timing is right and it serves enough of the factions that are interested, yes. Let's see. Hold on. Let's just read some more news stories. Well, ones of significance anyways. Let's see. Oh, by the way, some people have asked me if I think that General Mark Milley and guys like General Mattis and stuff like that are aware of extraterrestrials. I think absolutely. I don't know to what extent they may be aware of the secret space program, but I think they're pretty well versed. With that being said, though, I also think there's a lot of things that they are not letting on to. Let's take a look here. Hold on. Let's see. Yeah, that Pegasus story was a really big story. Just in, CDC has added 6,000 new death reports in VAERS following COVID-19 vaccinations in the U.S. Total deaths have more than doubled compared to the last week. Oh, okay, this is actually something I wanted to bring up. 200 people in 27 states in the U.S. are being monitored for symptoms of monkeypox after an infected person traveled earlier this month from Nigeria to Dallas, according to the CDC. This is an article from the New York Post. This whole thing with what's this monkey? Is it monkeypox? Yeah, it's monkeypox, right? Yeah. I don't. I mean, look, at this point, it could be bioweapons galore. I mean, or it could be absolutely nothing. Right. And this is why when people say, how do we know what's credible or not? That's the unfortunate thing. We don't. And, it's showing that people are really not seeing this as a fringe anymore. And why do I say that? If you look at, for example, the recent documentary of, I think it was about Ghislaine Maxwell. Right. And Maria Farmer, one of the victims who's been very outspoken, has said she doesn't believe Ghislaine Maxwell's in that New York jail cell. And you know what? I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all, because the institutions that screwed her over for so many years, I can't begin to imagine her anger. You try to call the FBI in the 90s and it gets covered up, gets hushed up, right? You've been living with that your whole life, your head being messed with. A lot of these victims had to go into hiding. So I don't blame them when they say things like, oh, I don't believe that, Ghislaine Maxwell's not in a jail cell. I mean, yeah. And also Yuda said, It's less like whoa and more like, oh yeah, it probably is. Yeah, that's literally what's been happening for the past year and a half or what have you. Um, let's see. Oh my gosh, there's just so much. Um, Several floods hit Chengdu. Hopefully, I said that correctly. I apologize if I butchered that pronunciation. The capital of Henan province in central China. Streets flooded. People are trapped in the subway, their homes and vehicles. The city recorded the highest single day rainfall on record. My God. FEMA and the FCC will conduct a nationwide test of the emergency alert system in the U.S. on Wednesday, August 11th. Yeah, this is. And also, by the way, people have been asking me my thoughts on the Dr. Fauci thing as well. Recently, like, with the hearings and stuff, he's just diddly daddling with his words now. It's pretty obvious. Okay, so let's see if we go back to the European Union is going to prohibit anonymous wallets for cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, according to new law amendments proposed by the European Commission today. Yeah, it's look, the thing with the crypto stuff with with all that is, again, it just goes to show like what the federal what I think the Fed Reserve Chair Powell said. I think it was a handful of days ago. He goes, we wouldn't need a Bitcoin if we had an American cryptocurrency. Again, folks, going back to what I was saying before, the system is built by people no smarter than you and I. Why is he saying that? Control. You control the currency. Simple, right? Also this year too, quick little flashback of UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson saying, quote, "We won't have vaccine passports in this country to allow you to go, say, to the pub," end quote. He said that. Now, again, did he say that last year? I mean, he said it. Again, I'm not trying to always catch politicians in lies. That's not the goal here, because I don't believe in, stooping into that type of culture war thing. But to suddenly shift like that, yeah. Let me see here. Oh, also, by the way, I forgot to tell you guys, the Russian general also mentioned as well that allegedly the way, he said, a very traditional way that even works nowadays that other countries have used to summon UFOs from the moon or from other bases in the galaxy and things like that, or even from underwater, is, he goes, basically all we did was do some extremely intense military exercises or trainings with our submarines, with our warships, with our fighter jets, and he goes, they show up. The general said multiple different species show up, and they just sit from a distance and observe, just to make sure that they're not, screwing, messing things up. I guess, an accidental nuke doesn't get let off, or you know what I mean. But he said, he goes, that's a very traditional way to do it. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh, great, perfect. If only I had, many billions of dollars to buy those warships and stuff, and then I could summon them. Right? But even then, guys, I got to be honest, at this point, it makes me think, if there's people like, Stephen Greer that are doing the CE5, I even think at this point, I don't rule out the possibility that Stephen Greer was sort of drop fed the CE5 protocol by the CIA or the intelligence community in order to use him, not in a bad way, but, use him as the front guy for the interfacing with thought and summoning UFOs. And why do I say that? Because, again, we take a look at how he claims he's threatened constantly, right? And I look, I'm not ruling that out either. But at the same time, how come when this Russian general said back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, they would mentally summon UFOs with no chemicals, no drugs, no anything, right? And then what would end up happening? The UFOs would come, but they would land. How come every time people who do CE5, whether it's with Stephen Greer's group or not, claim that UFOs come, which, again, I've done I guess you could say a variation of CE5, and its craft have come, but they don't land. Is there an agreement that a lot of these beings have with, most world governments, that when there is a mental summoning by an average citizen, they can show up, they just can't get too close? Or is NATO, is there like a secret base where when there is a mental summoning from people doing things like CE5, it's sort of like Project Mannequin that we spoke about. They send out the craft, which are, maybe there's no one even in there. They send it out just to, to answer that mental summoning. You know what I mean? These are things I ask myself, right? Let's see. People's Currency says soft disclosure has been happening for decades. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at Donald Kehoe, former, I believe, Air Force colonel. Please don't quote me on that. I don't mean to disrespect his position. On CBS News, I believe it was. where they cut him off the air because he was fed up with the Air Force, and he's like, listen, what I've been told to come on here and say is not what I really want to say, and then they cut it, right? So again, let's see here. Let's take a look at some other things. Staff at Hong Kong's RTHK public broadcaster ordered not to refer to Taiwan as a country or its leader as president, according to an internal memo obtained by the Hong Kong Free Press. Well, again, from my understanding, the mentality, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, of the CCP is that they don't recognize Taiwan as a country, right? As an independent nation. Oh, that's interesting. Rockets explode near the presidential palace during prayers in Afghanistan. Iran. I didn't see this actually. Iran's Supreme National Security Council draft agreement with world powers to restore nuclear deal is incompatible with Iranian law. Yeah. I mean, I don't understand what this big thing to get them back into this deal is for. And I'll tell some of you right now might be saying, "Whoa, Dave, are you nuts?" Like, there's a lot of reasons why. Well, I think ultimately, I really don't believe Iran's a threat, in my humble opinion. I know that they don't like the West, and I understand that. I understand the other side of things as well. With that being said, though, I think that the nuclear deal, the nuclear program, even when Obama did it, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but it gave them more leeway. Why do I say that? Because no matter how many United Nations inspector generals would go and inspect it and take a look at how things were doing, again, I got nothing to prove this. I'm being totally truthful here, but you're telling me that Iran wasn't secretly still making nukes, that they're following the rules? I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. And I think the CIA knows that. And again, the nuclear deal seemed more symbolic to me than anything, in my humble opinion. But let's see here. One last thing I'll cover about Taiwan. China furious at Lithuania over Taiwan opening representative office, urges the Eastern European country to bow to the one China principle. Again, right, this is and we take a look. China's new 600-kilometer-an-hour high-speed maglev transportation system rolls off the production line in Qingdao, hopefully I said that correctly, at snail's pace. Oh, I guess it was slow. But anyways, the point is the tech is there. That's what I'm trying to say. Let's see. Hold on. Let's take a look at some. Oh, and there's even the FBI, accused Gresham Whitmer thing, which is that they were all, most of these suspects were FBI informants that were then, the ones that planted the idea to this group to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. And, now there's the big debate. Was that legitimate, or was it a setup? The methods of the FBI have been questioned since the FBI, in my opinion, was erected, even started, in my opinion. The CIA, I don't believe anything they say when they testify to Congress, just like, Jim Clapper when he lied to Congress in 2011, I think it was, before Snowden came out, saying, the NSA doesn't spy on American citizens, not knowingly at least. Remember when he was rubbing his head and he looked all nervous? He was lying. And then nowadays we see him on CNN, and you see, CNN hosts saying, "Oh, Mr. Former director, Mr. Clapper, it's an honor to have you on. It's an honor to be with a liar." I mean, it's not as black and white as that. I get that, but let's see here. U.S. puts the United Kingdom on the highest danger levels, tells Americans to avoid all travel. Well, let's see. All of these. Hold on. 20 with Corin says, Dave, body language speaks truth. I couldn't agree more. Let's see. All of these alphabet agencies are corrupt. Interestingly, yeah, Google's parent company is called Alphabet. Yeah, interesting. Hey, Mike, what's going on, brother? Good evening. Let's see. Third Coast Royalty. Nico Mirando. Reg Hernandez says, rest in peace, Mac Miller. Yeah. There's so many things, guys, that that started off in the West as being, independent, sort of like mom and shop inventions in terms of software stuff and software programs, excuse me, and the CIA just snatching it up in a second before it even, made headlines or anything like that. Let's take a look here. John McAfee, that guy, what that guy did, if you guys, we looked at that video on Patreon about a week ago. What that guy did was really, really interesting. In terms of when he got pissed off with the State Department and he inserted all those computers in there. That was, yeah. Let's see. Lupe Ramos says Bernie Mac was sacrificed because he wanted to tell people about the cloning facility. I don't rule any of that stuff out. Anytime they'll kill people whenever those people have evidence of what they're claiming. If they don't have evidence, again, that's why when some people ask me, Dave, how come they kill certain people and others they don't? Because again, it depends how close you get and how easily you could corroborate it and things like that. Let's see. Singh Maysog asks, was Anthony Bourdain a sacrifice kill? Was Anthony Bourdain a sacrifice kill? I don't know enough about Bourdain and his story to be able to answer that, Singh. I can get back to you on that. It's certainly an interesting question. That's for certain. But again, I don't want to comment on stuff that I haven't looked into personally. Let's see here. Rest in peace, McAfee, Cooper, and Isaac Cappy. Elites enslave us. Yeah. Diego asks, any news on the McAfee's DMS? Yeah, some. Yeah, there's some revelations that'll be coming this week. You'll see. Yuda says, I think Michael Jackson was framed because of similar things. Well, that's like that footage of Joanne Rivers saying that shortly before she died, very mysteriously, right? Saying that everyone knows that Michelle Obama's a man and that stuff, right? Now, again, I'm not trying to spread that kind of stuff if it's not true, but she did say it and then mysteriously died after. It does warrant for some interesting inquiries, in my opinion. Yeah, Humboldt, can anyone say or type in the chat what was on the ship that was blocking the canal? Oh, what was on the ship? Sorry, I thought you asked for the name of the ship. What was on? Unfortunately, on here I can't. Let's see. Michael and Barry. There's so many things, guys, that I was skeptical of even a handful of months ago, like, switching bodies with these pods that they have secretly and stuff like that now I don't even bat an eye at, just because of some of the what's it called? Just because of some of the connections being made. Let's see, 1 second. Let's see here. Michael Jackson owned Sony? I don't think he did. I don't think he did. Lipchin says, good day to you, bro. Good day to you, Lipchin, as well. What's your top 3 get kicked off of YouTube subjects? Honestly, Lipchin, probably some of them I can't even say would be certain things I've seen on the gray area of the web. Obviously, anything COVID related that, the CDC or the WHO hasn't confirmed. You gotta give me a little time to get back to you on that, Lipchin. But yeah, that's let's see. Oh, Elite Enslave Us says, rest in peace, Stanley Kubrick. Interesting. I watched Eyes Wide Shut last night. Let me see. Justin Anaya says, hey, how's it going? Did you enjoy your mushroom experience? I did. Yes. Thank you. Diego Gomez says, no, he owned a part of it. I guess you're referring to Michael Jackson. Sufficient enough to upset Sony and try to force him to sell some of his shares, something like that. I understand. I get it. Okay, I get it. That makes perfect sense. Let's switch source. Oh, by the way, guys, I did want to tell you guys something really cool too that I'm going to be revealing in I guess to those that don't watch this episode or this stream, in a public episode this week. So there was apparently a group under DARPA back in the 90s that was called Advanced Group 6. And this group allegedly was responsible for the most high tech, I guess you could say, reverse engineering of alien weaponry that they could get their hands on at the time in the 90s. I'm not sure if this group existed before that, but basically it would be like what some documents and whistleblowers have claimed to state is that it's similar to how we see, if you guys remember in the Transformers movie with Mark Wahlberg, the Transformium, it being like, sort of like that black goo concept where it can sort of shape shift itself. It's living, it can think on its own, similar to what, Werner von Braun told Yuri Geller when he took him to NASA and things like that. So anyways, there's Advanced Group 6, right? That's there. And we all know that Lockheed Martin does, again, they admit their Skunk Works division does 90 to 95% of the work there is classified, and they admit that, right? As I said, 4 or 5 months ago, at least they admit it, at least they don't bullshit us. And this is what's interesting. So I'm going through the rabbit hole of research a couple of days ago, and I type in advancedgroup6.com, right, just to see. It redirected me to the Lockheed Martin. It redirected me to the Lockheed Martin. I have the tab open. Advanced Technologies capabilities page specifically, which is interesting. So I don't know if you guys want to try that on your own. When I tried it on some different browsers like Chrome and stuff like that, sometimes it would redirect me to Lockheed Martin's website. Other times it wouldn't. It would actually, there's a login for advancedgroup6.com that was registered in 1995, which is interesting. I'm not sure if it's a prank or not, but again, could it be a potential slip up? It's hard to say, right? Some people think that, they wouldn't be that naive. But again, when you have so many allocated resources compartmentalized, things, everybody's human, like mistakes are made, right? So let's take a look here. So let's see. Advanced Technologies with DARP. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Anyways, let me see if there's any. By the way, these Vimanas, I believe, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, from the Hindu scriptures, and with the rocket propulsion stuff, we've been taught this type of stuff before. This is not the first time at all. Let me see. Blue asks, did you see the guy on Instagram who posts videos of 2027 and cities being empty? Is that the TikTok guy, or is that another guy? Yuda says, I'm gonna smoke for you, Gen Z. You should smoke some time live. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Stu Moo says, we are modern day slaves begging the masters for a job. Unfortunately. Jelton says, Kubrick definitely did the moon landing, in my opinion. Look, you know what? I think he had certain, there were certain parts definitely that he was seen with NASA guys, high-level NASA officials. He was, if I'm not mistaken, seen with Werner von Braun. Again, let's see. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's see. Hold on one sec. I don't want to do that. There's a bunch of stories. Excuse me, guys. There's a bunch of stories here that. Let's see. I wanted to pull up some more news stories. Let's see here very quickly. Yes. Admiral Byrd declared today that it was imperative for the United States to initiate immediate defense measures against hostile regions. The admiral further stated that he didn't want to frighten anyone unduly, but that it was a bitter reality that in case of a new war, the continental United States would be attacked by flying objects which could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. Earlier, he had recommended defense bases at the North Pole. Okay, again, how much more, clear could we be at this point with that type of stuff? Let's see. Hold on a sec, everybody. No. Okay, guys. So we got Camden here. We can do this really cool thing if you guys want that we were planning to do, where you can see our screen and mine and Camden's face will be in the corner. So let me just see if I would have to start a new stream, which I hope I don't have to. Or let me see if Camden can do it from how we're doing it now. This is really fun. This is the part I was looking forward to. I've been having fun, to be honest, but John Miltonberger says, where can you say, should I subscribe? Again, to be honest with you, John, sir, the Patreon will essentially guarantee that you get uninterrupted notifications and stuff like that. But, aside from that, we're on YouTube here, obviously. We will be on Twitch soon. I plan to do a lot more live streaming, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean. Just type in Generation Z podcast on any of them and you'll find it. Let's see here. T. Nelson says the Kubrick video confession is easy to find on YouTube. Yeah, I'm curious. I'm asking this and not in a demeaning way, but was that confession video faked or not? I've heard conflicting stories about that. Let's take a look. Let's see here. By the way, guys, this is I would like to start doing these streams much more often. I'm not sure if you guys would like that, but streams like this where we kind of just come on, oh, yeah, I got to call Camden. 1 second, guys. Okay. Everyone tell Dave to call me. 1 sec, guys. I'm just... Jelton says, I don't know about that video, but the proof is in the pudding. Hold on, guys. 1 sec. Hey, what's happening? No, I'm just doing a normal stream. If it's got to be if we have to start a new stream, I'm cool with it. I think everyone here would be interested to see as well. Even if we do an hour and a half of it, whatever, it's still good. Everyone gets to see what's on the screen, right? Yeah. Oh, everyone. Okay, we're getting comments now. People are saying do it. So, do you need anything from me on my end, or you want me to just join a Zoom? Sure. Make sure to link the OBS to the channel. Yeah. Okay. Sounds. Yes. All right. Sounds. Do you think I might need to end this stream for you to link it? But anyways, yeah. Okay. So sure. So what I'm gonna do is, because everyone can hear me on the mic now too, is everyone, I'm gonna have to end the stream. We'll be back in maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Should be less than that, guys. So we'll be back very shortly. And yeah, thank you guys. It was a really fun 2 hours, but I got to end this stream for us to do this next thing. So yeah, if everyone will take a quick break and then we'll be back shortly.